to the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, this is incredible. I mean, we finally, we've been fighting all week on the floor on the NDAA, and in this committee, it's always a knife fight, it seems like. But in today's hearing, we have really unanimous support for fixing this process. We're letting it expire, but there's a recognition across the entire country that this needs to be fixed. You know, what's perplexing to me, we just had Director Wray come in, Professor Turley, you alluded to that earlier, who, if you ask agencies, all is well in the land of Oz, and that's just really not the case. We know that the FBI and other agencies have abused FISA to the nth degree. We know that they continually spy on Americans without a warrant. We know that they end around and they use data collection and geotagging and geolocation to look at the activities of Americans. And at the end of the day, you know, I look back and Professor, you cited the Federalist Papers. You know, we're a nation of laws. We're not some Orwellian dystopia where these things are appropriate or even allowed, but we've allowed them to happen. And I think to the point of the entire panel, we really need to get a handle on this in a pretty aggressive way. Professor Turley, I want to start with you. To hear the FBI talk about it, we should be celebrating that we went from 2 million illegal search queries to 200,000. Do you think this is cause for celebration?
No, it's like a bank robber saying we're hitting smaller banks. I mean, its problem is that you're engaged in something you're not supposed to do. Look, the thing that we have to keep in mind is that all governments are information junkies. That is consistent across all types of government, whether they are democratic or authoritarian, they're information junkies. They want more information. It's not necessarily for nefarious purposes. It's that they want data. They always do. And so this impulse will exist and it will grow unless you restrain it. I was baffled by the director's testimony. When he said that he wasn't even aware of what parallel construction was, I was really taken aback, because that's a core issue in these FISA debates. It's been an issue for years. And I just looked in disbelief when he said, I'm not sure what that might be. What that might be is a very serious threat to privacy. It's existed for years. It essentially replants material in order to create a different origin. And its purpose is to hide the original origin from courts. And as someone who's litigated national security cases, I have to tell you that these cases are riddled with this type of sleight of hand. And I'm usually the cleared attorney in national security cases. I've had national espionage, terrorism cases. And when you hit a FISA line, all the lights go off. I mean, the government gives you nothing. But the other thing that I want to emphasize about these commercially available information is it has another insidious problem. And there's what happens is the government often wraps commercially available information into FISA applications, and then everything gets iron-plated under FISA. And when people like me finally see the applications in the SCIF, we find it's loaded with material that should have been disclosed to defense counsel or to trial counsel.
Right, so this is nothing to celebrate. I mean, 200,000 violations of the Fourth Amendment is not really a good cause for celebration. You know, Professor, I think you hit on having a special advocate and strengthening that. I think that's a great step. What in your mind are other reforms that would be crucial to fixing the FISA problem that we have in this country?
Well, Congressman, the most important one is where we should have started and ended this debate in '78. That is, you cannot engage in a query or search of a U.S. citizen without a warrant or Title I order, period. I don't think it should matter where that occurs. Now, it's true, the extraterritoriality of the Fourth Amendment has not been supported by the Supreme Court, but you can support it. You can support the rights of U.S. persons abroad. That creates a very clear line. When I talked about letting the provision sunset, I'm saying that when it sunsets, you make clear that all searches or inquiries, wherever they are, of a U.S. citizen by a U.S. agency must be accompanied by a warrant or Title I order,
right.
Period. And they can find a way to try to get around that, but that's the brightest of bright lines.
Mr. Chair, real briefly to wrap up, I'm also concerned that even if we fix this, that the administration, a future administration, would just end around this by virtue of executive orders. So how do we deal with FISA and reforming FISA when an administration could just go around it? What would you suggest in that sphere?
Gentleman's time has expired. You may answer the question.
I think the short answer is 2 words. Any statute needs to make clear that whatever Congress specifies as an appropriate search has to be the exclusive means of obtaining the information that's covered. And if you're a lawyer sitting at the White House or the Justice Department, you feel an obligation to be sure that the president that you serve takes care that the laws be faithfully executed. And if it's clear in the law that there's one exclusive way of getting the information at issue, you're going to feel some obligation to be sure that your boss proceeds in that way. But if there's a statutory vacuum, that's where the problems arise.
Gentleman's time has expired.